I started on the collie gangs. They was the big stones what used to run around in the middle of a basin, or a basin effect anyway, all still. And there used to be the collie gang man and his finisher, and I was the finisher. I started as a finisher. It's just a matter of feeding paper with water added, and so it mixes up as it goes round. And then from there it went emptied out in tins, which would be 4 tins at a time, to go to the beaters. The beater had a colourman and a helper, and the colourman used to do the colouring. The helper used to empty tins, 2 tins either side of the beater. That's where they used to go round, and added colour to that. We made all sorts of colours at one. We tried black. Black was that was terrible. Black. It doesn't matter how much you put black in there, you can never get it right. It never felt right, and it never looked right somehow. And they tried time and time again different chemicals, but it wasn't no better. The best one was orange. Oh, I used to love orange. £3. Of course, it wasn't so much liquid then, it was more powder, a lot more powder. And orange was a powder. And we used to put £3 of it in every beater and touch it up with red or something like that to make it look a bit different. But that was all right. But it used to float around all over the place. I used to go home and have a wash, and I used to be pink, red. Oh, it used to be horrible. It really did.
I remember one day we were trying to work out the lighting in the machine hall, and trying to overhaul it and strip out a load of old wiring, with tons and tons of lead covered cable, and you took your life into your hands dealing with that stuff. You really did, because it's like the main power wires inside are insulated with like a rubber bonded cotton, which decayed over time, and obviously with a lead outer cover it's conductive, so you would always, you check that one's a bit live. But we pulled the fuses for the me and the chief engineer pulled the fuses out in the fuse room so we could take this cable out for all the lighting, and we were working away quite happily in the fuse room, taking things apart. And there was this howl came from down the machine aisle, and the works manager was running down the machine aisle. She said, "What the hell are you doing? You've stopped the paper machine." We'd only pulled the fuses for the lights, and it turns out, because up until, well, for many years till I got there hadn't really been any sort of electricians particularly with a control systems background, and some bright spark had gone and wired the emergency stop circuit for the steam engine and the paper machine into the lighting circuit. So when we pulled the fuse, it pulled all the emergency stop circuit down. That's it, shut everything down straight away. To say the least, we had some explaining to do. But I was quite lucky that the chief engineer was doing it with me. Otherwise, I'd have been in deep doo-doo. But that's the sort of things that happen. So.
I was on one of the Newtowners, should we say, which did make a difference in the early days of Dickinson's. When I say the early Newtown. I moved here just before I was 14. And I went to Dickinson's just after I'd done my national service, so I was about the age of 22 then. I was already married, and my wife was working at Dickinson's at the time. We didn't work in the same department at all. I was packing supplies I was in, which was quite nice, but there was terrific animosity between the old Hemel and the new Hemel. If you was an old Hemel working there, you've got priority in repairs and maintenance, and you know, the setters and fitters coming up repairing your machine. If you wasn't one of them and you didn't play football or cricket for a local team, you was ostracised. You might just as well have gone home, and that was it. So I stayed about 18 months and then I left and came back about 22 years later when Alfred Norders finished in the town, which was where my father used to work. He worked there most of his life, and I worked there for 22 years. Then it closed. I went back to John Dickinson's, where I stayed from there up till about 6 months before they finally closed. I went there as a driver, delivering their goods all over the south of England. I came to like it. It was very, very hard work, driving around London and places like that. But once you got on a regular round, you've got to know your customers. Certain customers were really, really nice. Others, you waited till they spoke first. Otherwise, you didn't know what mood they were in. And I was sorry to leave, really, but, you know, that Dickinson shut down. I didn't stay. Dickinson stopped, did our own deliveries and went to TNT, I think it was. So I then changed and went into the warehouse, that big automated monstrosity that was there. And again, I enjoyed that. That was something different again, and I really enjoyed myself there with the people from, well, they were all right with shift work. Driving was nights away. I spent at least two nights a week away from home when I was on driving. But nevertheless, it was a good job then. Completely different from the first time I was here.
Watford's place in the printing world was driven by a photographic printing process called photogravure. And the Odhams in North Watford and the Sun printers in West Watford were leading the world in this new development. It was a high speed, high quality, 4-colour printing process, which meant that between the Sun and Odhams they were printing in excess of 75% of all of the magazines on the market at that particular time. So if you walk into W.H. Smith's or any large newsagents, 75% of all of those magazines were printed in Watford. And the reason that Watford was the print capital was because of the development was going on, but initially because of the plentiful supply of paper. Because the Gate Valley had, between Two Waters and Croxley Green, 6 paper mills at that particular time. 5 of them were John Dickinson's paper mills, and the other one was the one we're at here, Frogmore Mill.
I got into Nash Mills, and I was on shift for a while, then went on to production, out of the laboratory into production, and I ended up on the beta floor there, that was really hard work on those days. You're working in temperatures above the machine, the beta floor was above the machine, the same as it is at Frogmore. You're working in temperatures of, in the summer, 100 degrees F. Up there, we had to take mineral tablets. We called them salt tablets, but they were mineral tablets, like magnesium sulphate and sodium chloride tablets mixed. Just to drop them in a bottle of orange squash. They used to fizz up, effervesce up. We had to drink that all day to keep the minerals in our body. And and that was hard work because the dye was added by hand, and the colour matching was difficult. It was all visual, no technical aids.
The main thing about working in the mill, I never worked on the floor, but everybody was really friendly. It was a huge, big area, as you probably know if you've been all the way along. You could walk for miles, so if you felt like getting lost for half an hour, you certainly could. And not like work now, people did sort of go down and wander along and have a chat with other people. It was busy, and you used to have to watch out you didn't get knocked over by fork trucks going along the corridors. And it was very diverse, because that's the first time I'd ever worked in a diverse place. There were lots of different people from lots of different walks of life.
What was the mood like when Dickinson's closed in the town and the workers?
Oh, I think it was utter shock. I mean, I personally was on holiday in Scotland and was driving back from Scotland, put the local radio on as we got nearer to Hertfordshire, and heard on the radio that we were going to close, and I was so stunned that we missed our turn-off. It was such a shock. People always thought, as a union rep, I knew what was going on, but I didn't. Had an idea that at some point, because we owned the land, Spices didn't own their own land, so therefore we were ripe for them to collect the money and just disappear, which in effect did happen, which is why the pension we thought was more as well important to try and save for people. But yes, it was utter shock. I mean, people were devastated. You know, you'd see people crying. I mean, when they left, I mean, it was awful to stay to the end, really. Some people did opt to go earlier, but it was very sad at the end, because it was the end of an era. Dickinson's was Hemel Hempstead.
Do you think some of the culture died with Dickinson's?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Do you remember any call-outs as a fireman? Do you remember some of the things you had to do?
We had a couple of call-outs when I was at Apsley. Unfortunately, the big one, which was a call to Nash Mills, because I didn't live at Apsley, I wasn't on call 24/7. You see, I was still living at the time living with my parents, so I didn't get called out to that. We had a couple of incidents at home park, but an industrial fireman, an industrial fire brigade, your main task is fire prevention. The focus is on fire prevention, and that's the reason why we entered all the tournaments, because it was the drills and the tournaments that was the glue that held the team together. Otherwise, I think well, you wouldn't have been proficient if there was a fire. Not like a local authority brigade that's called out maybe 2, 3, 4 times a day. So you had to have the tournaments and the drills to be efficient and fast in handling the equipment. The Heritage Fire Brigade here at Frogmore, with which I'm a member, I mean, that's part of what we're doing. We're almost to a man ex-Dickinson firemen. We have a couple of members from Leighton Buzzard Fire Brigade, and there's a couple of members who were in Frogmore Mill Fire Brigade, but they are not particularly active for various reasons. So we usually see them at our annual social. So yes, we are in touch, thankfully, and that's a good thing. I mean, little did we think that we'd be able to recapture this comradeship, at this time of our lives, after the closure of the mills. But there, the opportunity came, and we grabbed it, and it keeps us together, and it helps keep the fire equipment, the vintage equipment here on the go. So yeah, it's good.